Okay, so to build the student interface, the school interface, sorry, we're gonna start off with a student class, a students class, a person class, a students class that is a person, and a staff class that is also inherits from a person. What else might we want?
We need a school class as well. The
Yep.
actual school info.
Okay. So I think these are good enough. This should allow us to do what we want to do. Where are we getting our data from? So we know we have staff data and we have student data. So we can just pull this from CSV. So we know that because we have data, we will need to have a mechanism to load our data. So I'm gonna say, one of the things that we will want to do is load CSV data. Create objects from that data. And then what would we want to do with it? Because you guys are familiar with the first two parts of this. So we grab the data from the CSV, we're creating objects from it. Where would we want to kind of hold this data within our program? We have a bunch of classes, so which one would it make sense to hold?
Do we need a runner also or no?
Yeah, so we can have runner.py file. This will run, this will be our main entry point. So we have a school that will probably hold a name, and it would probably make sense to hold student and staff information, right? So this will hold name, all students, and all staff. The students and staff and person, these will be based off of the data that we have. So we will, when we create them, that's what we'll be using. Okay, what else? What else do we want to do? So we have a main entry point to our program. What do we want to do as our first step in our program? And if no one says anything, I'll pick on people. So please say
Create a
something.
menu of choices to select.
Okay, so we need to create a menu of choices to select from. So we see here our first one spits out the name of our school. Do we have a school?
Not yet. To make all the classes.
Okay, so we can start off with the school, so we can create our school class. So, and by creating our school class, we can instantiate with name, right? And what happens after this?
Select the school you've chosen, one of many, I would think.
Yeah, well, for this one, we can just keep it simple. We can just say we have one school, and this is our school. So let's say instead of this is Sierra student interface. So this is specific to like code Platoon. So we don't really need to worry about having multiple schools. So someone said to create the classes. So if we create the school class, what happens after this?
You gotta create a student and staff classes as well.
Okay, and how do we create those? What are they based off of?
The person class.
Okay, and what is the person class's data based off of?
It's coming from the CSV files.
Exactly. So what would we need to do with the CSVs?
Read them and import the data.
Perfect. Okay, so we can move this one up here. So we would want to load the CSV data and create objects from that data. Okay. What comes after this? So if we created the objects, that means we now have students and staff, right? Where should we hold the students and the staff?
In the person class.
You could, so the person class will only hold information based on the person. So if we look at this, so we look at staff, we have name, age, role, employee ID, and password. And if we look at student, we have name, age, role, student ID, and password. So I would say that the person would only hold name, age, I think role,
Role and password.
password, yeah.
Is it, so was it correct to say create the objects from that data or list or? Because they're already created inside of the CSV, aren't they?
They're not created, so the objects are not created in the CSV. We are creating objects, so we're creating student and staff objects specifically. So these will inherit from person, but for each file, we want to create, or for each data point. So for each row, for each person, we want to create either a student object or a staff object, depending on who they are. Yeah, Kenneth.
Sorry, just trying to get back on what I was gonna say. The way that I understood it, the reason why we're creating a person class
Mhm.
and then actually passing that into the students and staff class
Mhm.
is for essentially purposes of like refactoring so that we don't have to continue to repeat lines of code because
Mhm.
students and staff are both people and they're going to contain the same thing. So
Yeah.
person hosts, and then it just passes at that point.
Mhm.
Okay.
We can come back to this part. So let's actually build up the classes real quick. I'm gonna start by making a folder called classes. And in here, I'm going to create a person.py. I'm gonna also create student. I'm gonna create, staff. And also school. Because those are for the 4 classes that we wanted. So for our school class, I actually have a class already created. So I'm just gonna grab that over here. So school, I create my initializer. This will take a name and it will hold staff information and it will hold student information. Okay, so I can save this and I'm gonna close it out for now so my top thing doesn't get too crowded. So today I'm gonna be showing you how I like to code. You guys obviously do whatever makes you feel comfortable, but I usually do this. So I would create all of my files that I need to populate, and then I go one by one and see what I need to or what I need to put in there, and then I kind of push it off to the side. So person class, I'm gonna create a person, like I said, that holds the basic information that is shared between both staff and students. So name, age, role, password. So yeah, this is self-explanatory. So now I'm done with that. Next we have staff. I will create Actually, I'm just gonna type this up. Okay. So I'm gonna create a person. Okay. So because I want the initializer for person, I am going to call super and send some stuff into the init function. So if I'm looking at the data, I see that there's employee ID that is specific to staff. So I personally want to save it as a specific thing. You could also not do this. You could actually just make ID an attribute in person, and then you can just have the person initializer take care of everything. But I specifically want to have the fields be a different name. So self dot employee ID. And this I need to take in here. So, oops. I cannot type this morning. Okay. So what do you guys think would be the best choice to pull in all the information here? So I know that
Quarks.
quarks, you said,
Yeah,
okay, why?
because we're going through the CSV file, and at the top we have the keys we want, which is name, age, role, ID, etc. And we want that to be attached to each individual repetitively.
Okay, so we taken the keyword arguments, and now we have to send in most of them into here, and then one of them has to be set here. So for init, it is going to take, oh, so person is not defined. How do I import this? How do I import person? Person is right here inside of the class.
From person spelled with a lowercase, import person with an uppercase.
Okay, so from person, import person. Okay.
Zainab, you and Adam have talked frequently about saving and testing often. Is there a mechanism then to print out at this moment what or maybe not this moment, but when we're finished this, the structure of your class, and just confirm that it's all structured correctly?
Yeah, I should have done that with school because school is kind of self-contained. So to do that, in my runner, I'm going to import from school. So from school, import school. Why is this giving me a
Classes.
assembly line?
You need to specify that it's in the classes folder.
Exactly. So classes dot school. I'm importing the school class, and then I can create it. So let's say CP for quotation equals school. So I'm instantiating a new school, and in here I just have to send in a name. So I can just say and so here I can just print. So there was the vars keyword here, or vars method, that gives you the attributes for a class. So let me just get out of this folder. I have an inheritance. Okay. Move to that. And then Python 3 runner. Okay, so now that we're printing out the variables of CP, which is just going to give us our attributes pretty much. So we have a name, code platoon, we have staff, it's empty, it's an empty list, and then students is an empty list. So that is your way to kind of check if your class is being instantiated correctly. Okay, so where were we? So school is done. We have created a person that will take in these. So staff, we need to actually send in the information now, right? So what are we sending in? Name, age.
Name, age, role, and password.
How would I do that using keyword arguments? So what would I say?
It's a dictionary entry style, right? So it's
Mhm.
keywords and then brackets, quote, name,
And then the same for all of them.
same for all of them, yeah.
I think age is next, yeah. Age. I feel like I need a better extension to do all of this. Okay. Role. And then
And why isn't the spread operator being used here, the 2 asterisks?
I was thinking the same thing.
it will be the same thing, yeah. So we can demonstrate that in the other one. You can use either one. And then here, we'll just access the specific one that we need, which is employee ID. Okay. So in theory, this should create a staff member. And then I can also copy this and create a student if I wanted to. I could also recreate it, but I'm lazy and I'm going to student. Just be careful when you're sending things in, or when you're copying and then making things from a copied version, that you check everything that you're copying over, that you don't have any spelling mistakes, or that you're still using old words, because that will cause a bug that will really bug you. Thank you. Very funny joke, I know. So this is student ID. And this is also student ID.
Then I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Why are we using the keywords on line 6? I understand line 5, but why are we not just passing name, age, roles, and password?
Because it's so the keyword args captures all of your parameters into one dictionary. So this allows you to access them like a dictionary. If I wanted to, in a different way, I could say I'm going to take in name, age, role, and role, password, and student ID. And then I can use that, but I have to make sure that when I'm initializing student, that it's in the exact same order as it is here. So if I'm pulling from my CSV, I have to make sure that this order is the same as that one. So using keyword args allows you some more flexibility in case you don't have that same order. So you can just call the key and then it will give you the correct one.
But why aren't you using the unpacking or the spread operator technique on line 6? And at line 6 as well?
So for line 6, because I had, hold on, because I had all of this condensed into the keyword args, if I send all of it into here, where is it? Person is only expecting these 4. It's not expecting all of them. So we have more arguments than we would be sending in, or we would be sending in more arguments than is expected, and that will give us an error. So that way, that's why we have to specify here what we want to send in.
And why aren't
To
you
get
adding
around
just the-
that, oh,
The
sorry,
two extras though, why aren't you adding just the two extras?
because I don't need them. And here I only need these because these are the ones that are the same. So name, age, role, and password.
Oh.
Those are the ones, like, I don't want employee ID to be a part of person. Does that make sense? Or, yeah.
So we're
Um,
essentially overriding right there, and then we're redefining exactly what we want back in the staff and the student.
Yes, so, yes, exactly. That's why we're calling the init function. So our student is a person, and person only takes name, age, role, and password. That is all the student will take. And since we have a student ID, we will have one extra. To get around this, though, I know this is star. To get around this, we could make this star keyword args. And then we would have to access the separate keyword args in here. And that way, if I do this, if I go to staff, I can just send in the keyword arguments as they are. And then just access the singular one that I need in here. So it's just different ways of doing it. But for this example here, I'm just gonna keep it as it is. Okay, so this is our person. I'm gonna organize this a little bit. Let's go here. Yeah. Person, and then student does the same as staff. Questions, or actually, yeah, you guys keep shouting out your questions while we're working through. Kind of gonna move at a fast pace.
Zainab, is that okay? We're not messing you up by just kind of interjecting, are we?
No, it's okay. This is, yeah, we're kind of coding together. We're making this happen together. Yeah. There's no lesson plan, so we're good. Okay, so now we have created our person, student, staff classes. So let's see what we need to do next. I could test it. I'm just gonna trust that it works. And then we'll test it when we're actually getting the data, which you guys should do it iteratively, but for time, I'm just gonna try to cut that part out. So this is our main entry for the program. So we want to create our school class and instantiate it with a name, which we did. So now we want to load our CSV data and then create objects from that data. So I could put this in my main runner. So I could have a few functions. So I can have a function that reads a CSV. Yeah, let's say this function will read a CSV. It'll take in a file name. Okay. And what do we want it to return? Maybe it'll return a list of dictionaries of that information. That will probably work. So to read a CSV, I would have to do, let me just make this a little cleaner. I know I'm going to need the CSV library, so I'm going to install that. So I'm going to do with open. I'm just going to say file name here. I'm going to assume that the person who gave me the file name gave me a correct one. And I'm just going to say, so this is R is for read again, and then as I don't know, CSV file. Okay. Why are we using with? This is just review.
It opens and closes it, I believe.
Yes. So there's a way where you can say file equals open and you don't have to put the as. But when you're done using it, you have to say file.close. So to get around that, we just say with.
Zainab, could you also add in there then to show us, how would you say, when you run the program, choose these 5 things, would also say, you are currently using the following 2 data libraries or two following CSVs?
What do you mean?
Could you express in the banner file, the file with the 5 choices at the top,
Here. Or here.
In the runner, when we run this application at the command line,
Okay.
could you say, here are your 5 choices. At this moment, this program is using the following CSVs.
You could print it out. There's no way of, I at least don't know of a programmatic way of pulling that information. There might be a
Would that be in
library
the
somewhere.
string dunder method then?
No, so you can just, so you're saying when I start the program, I want to print out what CSVs I'm going to be using. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can just print them out. So print whatever you want here. Unless you're saying that in the command line, you want to specify the names of the file.
Not
Okay.
in the command line, but can this runner file
Yeah.
read and report, print the names of the CSVs and the locations being used?
Yeah, you just have to print it. So like in here, because I'm reading this file name or like whatever is set in the file name, I can just print out, like literally print, whoops. I am using this file and making whatever. So you can print anything out that you want. So any sort of status logs, pretty much. Which is a common practice actually, to log statements, just so you know, when you have like a very big application and it's running, it's doing things, you can easily just check the log and see what is like in succession, the things that are happening. Yeah, Louis.
Can you explain exactly like what's going on from line 8 to line 10? Like, okay, so I know you define read CSV. Where'd you get the file name? Oh no, you passed in the perma. Yeah, can you just explain what like what's with doing open and then that R like in line 11?
Yep. So here I'm defining a function that will read a CSV. And then what this function will return is a list of what it has just read. I'm just defining this. This is what the function that I want. There's different ways of doing this. So to open the file, I need this line. So with allows me to open a file and not have to worry about closing it afterwards. It'll do it on its own. Open is a built-in function that I can send in a file name and what type of thing I want to do with that file. So there are different flags. R is for read. If I wanted to write, there's W. There's a bunch of different ones that you should look up if you're interested in reading and writing to files.
So that's also like a method as well, the R.
R is just a flag to tell it what kind of thing you want to do with this file. So R allows me to read this file. So this object, I can do things that will allow me to read it, pretty much. It primes the file pretty much for that type of thing. Did that answer your questions so far? Okay.
Yeah.
So now we are going to use our CSV library that has they have a built-in method called dictionary reader, which takes in a file and then spits out a list of dictionaries based on that file. So if we look at our files, what that library will do is it will take each column name, it will make it a key, and then it will take, for each row, it'll make a dictionary where the key is the column name and the value is the value for that row. So this will end up as a dictionary. Well, actually, I'll just finish the code and show you guys. So yeah, so this reads the file, and then for row in the file reader, I'm just gonna print it out right now. So print row, and this will show a dictionary. So now since this is so I could have easily made two with open statements that read this separate files. So I could have made one code block like this for students and one code block for staff. But because I know they're going to do the exact same thing and return the same thing, I'm just going to condense it and refactor it into one. Actually, I'm not refactoring because I didn't write it the other way first, but I know that both of them will do the exact same thing. So this is a way of condensing the code, which is a great practice. So if I say read CSV, I need to send in a file name. So this will be a string, and I'm gonna give it the path to the file. So actually I am gonna change this to path because yeah, there we go. It's gonna take a path because if it was just a file name, it's gonna expect it to be inside of the same folder, and that's not gonna work here. So I know it's /data/ let's do staff first, and then we can do the same thing for our students. Okay, so now we run this, we should get lists. There we go.
Zainab, is there a way to have that read the class name to make it more dynamic?
Yes, I mean, not at the moment. There is a way to get the class name. So you can say, I think like students dot, I think there's a name. No, I think this is only for functions. So if I wanted to use a certain function's name, there's a dunder name that you can use. So this will give you a string that is called read CSV. I can actually just print it out real quick. What did I do? Okay, so yeah, it just printed out read CSV. So this is kind of useful sometimes, depends on like what you're trying to do. Okay, so it looks like the read CSVs did what we wanted. Let's check in on it. So we have a bunch of employees here, and then we have a bunch of school students here. So questions about this so far?
I did have one. You said you were going to refactor the read CSV just to consolidate code. Would you keep that then in the runner file? Is that where you would store that?
It depends. So if you're creating so this is another design choice. There's a few ways of doing this. You could have a read CSV for each class. So in here, you can have like load student data. Oops, student data. And then you can have your CSV stuff in here, and then, actually, there's so many ways of doing this. Okay. So I would have to make this a static method. Actually, okay, so I was looking up yesterday about static methods, instance methods and stuff like that, and when to use them. People said to not use static methods because like, why would you keep a method in the class if you know that you'll use it like other places in the program? But class methods, however, so class methods specifically, you will want to use this if you are instantiating, like in here. So I put this class method. It's if I want to create students out of it. That is why I would keep this in here as a class method. So I could read CSVs, so I can do, I'm gonna import it. So from runner, import, read CSV. So in here, I can just send in the file name, or the file path /, or so because I'm in the classes folder here, I'm gonna have to do 2 dots to go outside one level. So // will give me access to this review folder here. Because I was in classes. So then I can go into data and then / for this one, this is students. And this is supposed to return student list. And then I can take care of whatever I need to do. I can create, so because this is a class method, CLS. So I can say CLS dot, or sorry, if it's class, and then I can just send in the information that I need to instantiate a student. So I feel like I'm confusing things a little bit. So let's go back here. We know that it's reading the CSVs correctly. So I'm just going to return, I'm going to instantiate a list actually. L.
Zainab, really quick, why did you add the dunder method?
Which one?
For
one?
print, yeah, why is that dot?
Oh, that was just we got a question asking if we can use like the name of a class programmatically like this, but this allows us to access the name of a function actually. So if you wanted to just print out the name of a function, this is how you can do it. Or if you wanted to use it somewhere in your program. But this is not part of this, yeah. Thank you for telling me. Or yeah, noticing. So L.append, so I'm appending my rows to this, and then I'm going to return L. Okay. So to answer your question earlier, I think you were asking about, should we keep this in this folder or should we move it somewhere else? You can do either. You can keep it here. Depends on how you're organizing your code. For like to start off with, you can keep it here. And then as you're adding on, as you're implementing more, if you see that your runner is getting too crowded, you can move things around. So that's the approach that I would take. I would start off keeping it simple, and then kind of adding more complexity or moving stuff around, trying to organize things in a different way. Yeah, that's.
Yes, but
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Would it make sense to put this in the person class eventually then, so that both student and staff could do this?
You could, yeah. So read CSV. For this case, for our program, we're never going to use a read CSV unless it's within the context of, actually, it doesn't make sense to put it there, because read CSV is like a general function method. So not only a person would need to do this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you could, but it might not make sense. So try to make it make sense too.
Zainab, before you move on, can I just see the school file? Did we make that yet?
School, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to our notes. We loaded our CSV data. Now we need to create our objects from that data. So here, this allows us to read the CSVs. I'm gonna comment these out. So now we need to instantiate our lists, right? So we can have a class method in each student and staff to do this. We can also have it outside in our runner. Multiple ways of doing this. But for now, let's say I'm gonna do this. I want to load student data. I'm making it a class method so I can call it from somewhere else. And I'm gonna create the student list by calling this method that I just wrote. Actually, this is technically the CSV data. So also with naming, try to make your names reflect what the things are actually doing. So CSV data, I am going to, what should I do now? Actually, I need more classifications. Spencer.
I'm not entirely sure. So right there. I mean, you're reading the CSV file, but aren't we already printing rows?
We
from
are,
there?
but we
From-
do create, so our next task is to create objects from the data that we read. So if we go back,
I was gonna say, I thought it was already creating the objects from the data that you just read by returning like dictionaries and stuff.
so it's creating a dictionary, which is an object type, but we want to specifically create a student object out of that data. So right now we just have a dictionary, but we're not using our student class or our staff class. So they're kind of just sitting there.
So we need to just define add a student or how to do that. Is that
Yeah, so we just create a student out of each one.
What?
You wouldn't go to the other classes and then use that class method?
So yeah, we can use this method from elsewhere. So what this method what we want this method to do is to grab the data from the CSV, and we want it to create students out of it. So the CSV data is a list of dictionaries. So what can I do with this?
Can we add on to it? Or is that what you're asking? Like add on to the CSV data?
Not necessarily add on, but we have a list of dictionaries right now, but we want to transform these dictionaries into a list of students. So they're a specific object. They're a student.
Look through the CSV data, and then I guess just whatever you want to print out, like their name, CSV data or record.name.
Okay, so yes, we should definitely loop through these. So we don't care much about the printing right now. We just want to save our data as student objects. So we're going to loop through each dictionary that we grabbed from our CSV. And then we are going to create a student out of it. So student, it takes in the keyword arguments. So all we have to do is do ** record. So this will give us a newly created student here.
And we can use that notation because of the keyword arguments, right? Because
Exactly.
if we didn't have the keyword arguments, that wouldn't work, correct?
Exactly. So if we didn't have the keyword arguments, I would have to send in every parameter on its own. That's the benefit of using the keyword arguments for sure. So now that we have students, we want to return our students as a list. So let's create a list. Students equals square brackets. And then we can say either students dot append student, or we could have condensed this into one line where we put this in this place. So it's just, yeah. But I'm gonna keep this here for understanding's sake. I don't know. Okay.
Well, I saw an example somewhere and I was just wondering, if
Yeah.
you replace student on line 17, student records, could you do CLS records instead on line
Which one,
17?
sorry? Line 17.
Yeah, instead of capital students, replace that with CLS. Would that be the same or is that different?
Yes, you can. I wanted to make sure that people didn't get confused with that, but yes, that's the whole point of the class method, is you're using just CLS to create the students.
I think that was really helpful to show that and then convert it to the preferred method, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna go back and rewatch this video, but that's really helpful.
Awesome, I'm glad.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out. So creating this, don't worry, I'm gonna go back and kind of go through how, like, what is happening exactly. So this method, in theory, will allow us to create students. We should test this out, but I'm gonna test this out after I create the staff one, because I also know this is gonna do the same thing. So read CSV has not been imported. So from runner, import read CSV and create staff. Members. I'll just call it staff actually. Okay. So here it's staff. That's what we're going to return. This is also going to be staff instead of students. Staff for record in CSV. Staff member. And then we're going to send in our staff member. And this is going to be our staff list that we are returning to whoever called this function. Okay, so that was a lot. Let's go back to our runner and kind of walk through exactly what will happen when we call it. So I'm going to import my class methods real quick. Actually, I'm just going to import my classes. So from what am I creating? Sorry. Student, import student. And here, like we said earlier, we need to specify that it's in the classes folder. So classes.student, import student. Classes.staff. Import staff. And okay. Yeah, this method is a little awkwardly placed, so we can just actually here. Put this on top. And not really look at it. So here's our main driver code. So we're creating our school, and then we can say student list equals student dot create students. And then we have our staff list equals staff dot create staff. And then we can print out student list and then copy. Okay. I know where this is. So here I have to still specify that it's in the classes folder. So in student and in staff, I still have to specify where it is in the program. So that was that error. It will. It's giving me another error. Cannot import. What am I doing wrong? So student. Circular import. So this is then the student.py. Am I importing student anywhere? I'm just importing person.
When I had a circular import error, I was importing the same thing in a different class.
Okay. So I'm importing person here, person here. So maybe in runner, I don't need to import.
Or shouldn't we just put the set the student list inside the school?
We should, yes. Let us do that. I was gonna move the code and refactor it there, but that's a good point. So let's define a function here that will initialize our staff and students. Initialize staff. And then fine. Both of them are going to do the same thing, actually. I'm just going to say initialize data or initialize personnel. I don't know. Any way works. So I can say, actually, they are not going to do the same thing. I am so sorry. Sorry, I'm thinking. Okay, initialize students. I know this is confusing. It will make sense. I promise I will go over everything. Yeah. Okay. And then here, the school class can. That didn't help. Okay. Import from. Classes dot school, yeah. Not school, sorry. Student. Student. So we're importing these, and then we can say student dot create students. So will give us a list. And this will be same for staff. Just the naming is different. Staff. And then this is going to be staff. Staff dot create. Staff. And I know I have here lists of staff and students, so I can just say, since this is a list, I can say students. No, sorry. So we'll take self. So this will be, I can't think anymore. Self dot staff, no, students equals list of students. Same here. I'm not gonna copy it. So self dot staff equals list of staff, which is going to overwrite whatever's in here, which is fine because it's empty in the beginning. Or actually, I'm so sorry for this. I'm going to just return this. And this way, if I'm returning the students the list of students that have been created, I can just set it up here. So this is to initialize students. I can say from the beginning, when I'm creating a school, this will immediately call the create students and create staff. This will be more efficient. This would be self dot initialize students and then self dot initialize staff. All right. So now this means I don't need any of this, I don't need this. And then
Zainab, could you go back to the school thing up for a moment?
Mhm.
And this might not be germane, but could you also could you show us how to create a method that prints off all students whose names begin with A?
Yes, but let me do this. So that will, yeah, for that one, you just create a method and then filter out the students that whose name starts with A, and then you can print them out, loop through them and print them out. So the filter method that we've seen earlier, that's the best one to use for this case.
Okay.
So right now, where we're calling school and initializing the CP, how many times are we creating school classes, student classes, and person classes?
Yeah, so I'm gonna test it if it's running, or if I'm getting any errors. I'm still getting not import school.
To mitigate all the import calls, can we just, and this is hypothetical, I guess, create the staff and student classes inside of the actual person file?
In here.
Yeah, would that just cut down on all the imports in theory?
Yes. Yes. So you can hold your student and staff classes inside the person class.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's starting in the runner, it's going to school. It's going to student. It's going to runner. So school has student.
I could be wrong here, but I think the problem is having the runner hold the read. So like it's, you know,
This one?
the student and the staff is dependent
Oh.
on the runner to read, but the runner is importing those to run it, like run those. So it's kind of, it's creating a loop of imports.
That might be the case. So let's move it to person. And then I can make this a. I know I said we won't use static method, but let's do that. Static method, I have to import CSV at the top. Okay, am I importing CSV anywhere else? No, okay. I mean, in runner, I'll delete that. Okay, person will read.
So, a quick question. So why does that need to be a static method? Can just be a function, or just a regular function?
Yeah, it's just a function.
No, I'm asking why we put in static method in front of it.
Oh, okay. I'm creating static method because I can then call it from a different file. So I put it in the person folder file here in the person class. And this allows me to call, actually, I don't need to because it inherits from this. Oh, but I'm using it in a different way because yeah, we need it here because this, if I just wanted to call, actually, no, I don't.
Without the starting method in front, even if you do that, it should work normally, right? Even if you do person dot with CSV.
You are correct. I believe that this would work if I just say class. So we don't need to make it a static method. So this will just do this. I'm importing person from here. I'm importing person from here. Read CSV is now part of this class. Okay. Person has the read CSV defined, school. Okay. And then we're just instantiating school. Okay, let's try this again. Oh no. Okay, this is better. This is a better error. That means the other one was solved, and thank you guys for helping me. So line 14. File path has to be in relation to person. So person is in here. // data. This should be correct. Let me try saying. I don't understand why it's saying that it doesn't exist, or it's not there.
Can you
Huh?
just
Need
right
one
click?
period. You just need one period, not two.
Just one for this
Yeah,
one?
just one.
No,
No, it
No.
definitely needs to be
Around.
you need double.
Yeah,
I ran it with just one.
for this one, okay, let's do it. So let me actually go back to file path, and then here's where we send it in.
I'm gonna say you just right click on the staff.csv, get the file path and put it directly in there too. Instead of
Copy path. Okay, yeah, that bases it off of my user, which is more accurate. That is true. So this is staff, right?
You
At
copied
what
wrong path, I think.
What is it?
You didn't copy the CSV path, and yeah, that one.
Yeah. Oh, this, oh my God. Okay, thank you. Copy path. There we go. CSV. And then this one is staff.
It also looks like whenever you right click, you could do a relative path right below that. That might,
Uh-huh.
I'm curious if that does the dot dot for us.
Okay, so it's relative to this folder, which might work. I don't know.
We could cut down on code, just use os.getCWD.
Yeah, I didn't want to mess with it right now. This is just giving an error because it's a string and it's not a variable anymore. Okay. Yeah, that one didn't work.
The relative path never worked for me.
Yeah. And I'll go over that maybe Monday or it'll come up again. I didn't want to rename. I will explain some more stuff about paths at another time. But there are multiple ways of using it. Okay, so one error is solved. Let's work on the other one. This is a student. Let's look at the data.
It has to say school ID instead of student ID.
Thank you. Teamwork, guys, teamwork. It worked. Finally. Okay. So now it's spitting out, here, if we go back to the runner, it's spitting out all of the vars for the school. So we see still the name, and then staff is now populated with a bunch of staff objects. And then if we look for students right here, students is also populated with a bunch of student objects. Okay, I will run through and explain what is happening now. Okay, so we are creating a school, right? So when we create a school, it goes into the init function. So this init function takes in our name, sets our name, and then it calls a method to initialize staff, and it calls another method to initialize students. So initialize staff and initialize students, what it does is it creates a bunch of students and it creates a bunch of staff based on the class. So we can start off at student. It creates students by reading the CSV. So now we have our CSV being read. This returns a list of dictionaries that hold the data, the raw data that was coming straight from the CSV. And then we are looping through our data. We are creating a student for each record. We are appending that student to a list, and then we are returning that list. And so if we go back to school, so that was our create student, same thing with create staff. There's a class method that is grabbing the data that was read from the CSV as dictionaries. We are looping through that data, and then for each record, we are creating a staff member and then appending it to a list, and then we are returning that list. So these lists that were returned were then set to these instance methods that are attached to our specific school. So that's why when we are here and we are printing out information from our school, we are able to see that we have a bunch of objects here. And you can obviously loop through our lists specifically. So if I wanted to loop through student in CP dot students, I can print out my student name. And there we go. We have a list of student names. Okay, questions? No questions?
Yeah, I got a question.
Oh.
So how does, okay, I'm a little confused about this. How does the method find out exactly which ones is students and which ones is staff? Like when it reads the whole file with the whole students and
For like, you mean the CSV file?
yeah, no, actually, never mind. Actually, because I thought the staff and students data were all together. But they're
Oh,
not.
okay. Yeah, no, they're in separate ones. If they were together, then in my, when I'm reading the CSVs, I can check for like if this says student or if it says staff, and then I can put them in two different lists. So that's one way of doing it. Chris.
For the string initializer, if we were to like, like in the assignment, adjust how it's going to be output, would the way you structured it, would you put that, so you would put that in person? Okay.
So it depends on what I want. I can do a person one where I print out all this information if I didn't care about the IDs, but I would also, you can make one here, you can make one in the student and staff and just have them print out all the information. So it just depends how you want to structure your stuff.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure, like, if you put it in person, would it inherit, so to speak, for student, staff, or?
It would, yeah. You would just have to print out the ID also. So that might be a little tricky, but yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Okay.
I got one real fast. Just if you could humor me on that last like the student.py.
Yeah.
The file path, would you be able to just try the one period before the slash data? I didn't think one period would work, but it did. So I don't know why.
It did.
Where are your folders? Because if you have, I mean, it might be that you're, because the single period means current directory.
Yeah.
So if the data is in the current directory of your staff or students, then it would work. So if the staff CSV or the student CSV are in your classes, like in this case, in Zainab's screen, like if staff CSV and student CSV are in her classes, then that notation would work.
Yeah, but it seems like it's not giving an error and it is working here. So that is baffling to me because yeah. So I think I might need to do more research on like the folder structure in Python when a program is running.
It's the current directory of the terminal and not in the relation of the actual file.
It might be because we're running everything from here and it takes that as the base point.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, questions? Other questions on this?